3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. This is Edgar with Weekly OJ. We're going to be doing a segment called Black Vault, where we dive into conspiracy theories and the like. Today I got
Omar,
Jeff,
Angel.
So today what we're going to be talking about is psychedelic manipulation, which is Operation MK Ultra, Operation Artichoke, Operation Bluebird. So we're going to get started on August 16th, 1951 in a little town in France. Dozens of victims were experiencing hallucinations or madness. Some of the victims, they were describing seeing blood on the wall. One victim said he was awake for 21 days, allegedly. So yeah, people were experiencing hallucinations out of nowhere, just a random day. Actually, there were 7 people that died. 300 were injured, and 50 were actually sent to the psych ward. Upon further investigation, it was thought that the cause was something in the bread. So investigators researching it, they assumed that the baker and the miller were that grinds down the flour to make the product to make bread. They assumed it was them because upon investigation, it was that the bread was poisoned. So they thought it was Saint Anthony's fire, which back in the Middle Ages was a rye fungus that was found in the wheat. And so when they ground it down, they actually had hallucinations as well, but a lot more people died. So this took a while until someone was actually able to kind of link stuff together. So this happened in 1951, and it wasn't until like 25 years later. So you're talking about like the 70s and the 80s. A man in the actually an American investigator called Hank Allerit investigated the incident in France. And he was also investigating the death of a CIA biochemist by the name of Frank Olson, who was a specialist in chemical weapons, and he actually did a lot of experiments with LSD. And what was very suspicious about him was that he was in France 10 days before the incident at Pont Saint Esprit. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So Hank, the American investigator, did his investigation, and he noticed that why is this biochemist over here in France 10 days before the incident?
So, I mean, putting two together, he might have something to do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But what's funny is that the French actually, they don't think it was him. They think it was just
a coincidence.
Kind of like maybe. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a coincidence.
they're trying to just sweep it under the rug.
So the conspiracy is who did it.
Actually,
After that, the investigator probably found out, right?
Well, yeah, because the documents for MK Ultra, Artichoke, Bluebird, were actually released.
Resurfaced.
So the documents were released by who?
The U.S. government.
So the U.S. government was involved, or they just figured it out? Or
yeah, they were involved. So the U.S. Army and the CIA were both interested in the form of
mind manipulation. Not
mind manipulation. They were trying to not use weapons. So this was during the time of the Cold War, which the Red Army
chemical warfare,
in the
right?
U.S. Yes, exactly. Not just chemical warfare, because I think that was
bio warfare, chemical warfare, and stuff like that.
Exactly. They were trying to make bigger, better weapons, but they were also looking into alternatives. And the U.S. and the U.S. Army and the CIA were interested in psychedelic warfare. So no weapons were being released. Yeah. This is where you get your sleeper soldiers. The truth serum, you wipe people's memories. So you interrogate them, you wipe their memory, and they don't know that they were interrogated. So the person that actually found LSD was Albert Hofmann in 1948, and it was actually derived from that rye fungus that was thought to be responsible for the incident in France.
I always thought it was Carlos Santana.
So the U.S. government, they actually found out that the scientists created it, and they had samples. The gentleman worked at a Sandoz laboratory, and when they found out that they had the samples of the LSD, they assumed that, well, if we don't get a hold of this, then the next person will. So they bought everything, and that's actually when they not exactly when they started using
Testing.
not testing, not yet. It actually wasn't until the Korean War, when soldiers that were or airmen that were fighting that actually got captured, they were interrogated, and they told them that they were using chemical weapons, or they were dropping chemical weapons. But that's actually illegal because of the
Geneva Convention.
The Geneva Convention, that you're not allowed to use chemicals at all. But this was said to be a lie. The U.S. doesn't admit to using it, but because the word is out now that they're using chemical weapons, well, everyone else is gonna also start getting into it as well. So they use this as an excuse for defensive purposes. So if Russia's experimenting, then we have to do the same thing. We have to
be ahead of the game.
We have to be ahead of the game, exactly.
Or at least in the same ballpark.
Mm-hmm. And actually, let me see. It was Project, I believe it was Bluebird, was actually started in, let me see. So Project Bluebird was signed in April 1950, but the Korean War didn't start until June 1950. So it gave them a couple months to experiment and or just get ahead of the game. Well, actually, what's interesting about testing it on themselves was they actually tested nuclear weapons on their own U.S. soldiers.
What?
Yeah. It was 2,500 U.S. soldiers. They sent them out into trenches, and I mean, the bomb was way out there. But what's interesting is that they actually told their soldiers, like, hey, there's nothing to worry about. You guys are way out of the nuclear, the radius of the nuke, so you're not going to get any radiation. That's fine. And there's actually a video out there where they interviewed the soldiers. And what's funny is the soldiers were like, oh, actually the radiation isn't what is the main concern. The main concern is the explosion itself. I mean, the blast, it'll vaporize you.
So this is the government telling the soldiers that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they actually debriefed them before they sent them out. And these are all volunteers. So they told them, hey, we need some volunteers so we can see the effects of our nuclear weapons. But what they told them was, you have nothing to worry about. You're far away from it, that radiation isn't going to affect you, and you're not going to get hurt by the blast itself.
Plus, they were in trenches, right?
Yeah, they were in trenches, but they didn't have any... They just had their regular protective gear. They didn't have anything to protect against the radiation. So they were in
their regular uniform, their GIs, and they were in a trench, just waiting for the explosion to happen.
They watched it. They watched it happen.
So what ended up happening? Because I'm interested. Well, what happened to them?
Well, obviously they had signs of radiation. They had their in the video, if you could find it online, the soldiers are scanning them with the little nuke thing, and it's going off saying that they're contaminated.
Shut up.
So after that, I mean, I'm pretty. I didn't investigate further on that, but I mean, we know the effects of nuclear radiation now.
Geiger counter.
But this was all during the Cold War, when they were really testing it. So this is when they were trying to do the truth serum. You interrogate your guy, you inject him with the serum, and you ask him a question, and he's forced to tell you the truth, to tell you the intel that you're looking for.
Do you know that's actual factual?
Yes.
Oh, the truth serum?
Liquor. For all you at home. It's liquor for all you at home.
I lie better when I'm on liquor, so...
There's no such thing as a truth serum. The only thing they have is it's kind of like that. It's like a relaxant or something like that. It just causes you to if I'm not mistaken, they have a serum that it like relaxes you. It makes you happy, and I think it could like, I don't know, it's similar to alcohol.
It just makes you comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, it makes you comfortable, and it kind of makes everything fuzzy. So you don't really know what the heck's going on, and you're just talking, and they're hoping they catch something. So they, if they repeat the question 100 times in 100 different ways, they're hoping you'll slip up because you're not fully functional. You're not all there. So
yeah, you're vulnerable.
They do that in interrogations.
But when you're on drugs, how much harder is it to keep
you got easier ways to get things out of criminals.
No, definitely.
Waterboarding.
So yeah, and another thing. So while they were doing these tests, they did them on their own soldiers, but they were all volunteers. Now the army will rebuttal this and say, look, we told them to the best of our knowledge what may happen, what side effects could potentially happen, but in the end, it's your decision. So in
some sense, they were kind of being fair. Right,
because
they didn't.
If you're gonna,
well, what do you call it? Yeah.
If they told you you're gonna go somewhere and something's gonna happen, these are the circumstances and these are the negatives, and there's no positive outcome. Maybe they have some monetary benefit, but if you could grow an extra ear or an extra nose, or
that's radiation.
But they were radiated. They had radiation on them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the whole reason for them doing the test was
no, not the same soldiers. These are separate. So when you do experiments like this, you wanted it to be as stable as possible. Otherwise, that's cross contamination. Because then your studies, whatever conclusions you come up with, is it the radiation or is it because of the hallucinations? So these soldiers are completely different.
Yeah. So let's go back to the ones from the bomb. The ones from the bombs got positive for radiation, so that means something could malform in their bodies or get an extra limb or stuff like that.
Yeah.
They can die. They
That's
can
not
die
how
of
it works, though.
They can die of radiation sickness.
Well,
yeah, they can die of radiation. I think
radiation.
But you
have
mutate. There is mutation on the radiation level, isn't there?
That's it. Yeah, you have to get a certain amount though.
Weapon.
So also remember when they did that experiment.
Chernobyl.
This was after World War II. So the Germans were actually doing tests like that, exposing people to radiation, but they were a lot closer to them. So after the Nuremberg trials, there were the worst of the worst. I believe there were 7 that were sent to death, 22 jail, and then one of them, I can't remember what happened to them. But they got the information, they got all the experiment details, so they knew what was going on. That's why they placed them that much further back.
Mm-hmm.
So at that distance, I don't think you're gonna grow any limbs. It's gonna affect your DNA, and you're probably gonna get cancer or something like that.
Regardless, though, you're not growing limbs. That's not happening.
And if you get close enough,
no, that's not happening.
But that's true.
Well, actually, growing limbs would be a child being born.
Yes.
Yeah.
For someone that's alive, you could actually watch the series. I believe it's called Chernobyl. Where they talk about that, but how they explain it is and these are high concentrations of radiation.
Yeah.
It's more like a really, really bad sunburn, but it's going to your DNA.
Yeah, but it alters your DNA, and then after a certain period of time, it modifies your DNA structure. Because in Chernobyl, there is different kinds of like spiders. Their DNA is all messed up. They can't do a perfect web.
Yeah, that's
and
what I'm
normally
saying.
Spiders can do a perfect web. So therefore, every spider that is in that family tree has those defects.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is, though. It's not. It's not necessarily a modified mutation. It's just a deformation. So if you give birth to a child and you have the radiation, and then what's likely to happen is that their DNA is going to be altered, and it's going to cause them to be deformed. So you're not getting a mutation aside from I think it's more of a deformation more than anything. So you're not growing in.
But still, it's still something not originally meant.
Right.
Yeah, true. But
so how's that a good outcome?
No, I'm not saying that it's a good outcome. It's just
but what we're trying to say is that from the beginning, you said, well, they knew the consequences, so it's not that bad.
No, I'm not saying that they knew the specific consequences. What I'm saying is they knew that there might be consequences.
Yeah, but I mean,
They just didn't know the level to
the
the
original statement was, are they being fair? Was the government being fair to the soldiers or not being fair? I say that they were not being fair, or they weren't fully...
not.
Even though they were
weren't
fully educated to the best of their knowledge.
maybe
The army.
because
Maybe
Because
they were-
they didn't know what was going to happen. That's why they were testing it out.
The reason why you do an experiment is because you don't know what...
yeah, but that's why you have to do it
wanna
with
know what-
animals. That's why most.
Well, they
I'm
did-
Sorry for people that are for animals and stuff like that, but that's why most experiments are with animals and not with humans.
Yeah, true, which is why it was getting into some dicey areas. But I mean, unless you want to unless you can prove to me or show me an example of the fact that they specifically knew the level of danger and they did absolutely...
Would they ever release that information?
Of course,
yes, we did
but
know.
just realize
True.
realize this is after World War II, so the knowledge of radiation is already known because Hiroshima and
scientists.
Nagasaki had already happened.
True, but nothing had been researched to the extent that, I mean, they knew what it was, and they knew that there was an effect that was
There was
happening.
testing on nuclear weapons, and of course, I'm pretty sure if there was testing on nuclear weapons, they know the outcome because they tested in New Mexico, in the desert of New Mexico.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they know some of the dangers for it.
Yeah, I guess I would have to look into... Okay, so...
Or was it?
No, it was New Mexico,
Yeah.
but I don't know what year. But it was
No, but
after
just New Mexico, I
that's
know.
what Operation Paperclip was.
Yeah.
Was they got 1,500 German scientists. They gave them a new lease on life. We're not gonna take
Prosecute. They're not gonna investigate. They're not gonna judge them for being Nazi sympathizers, right?
Mhm.
And then they brought them to the U.S.
They were just doing what
in exchange for their knowledge, pretty much.
So
Yeah.
the knowledge and cooperation. So that's when we got
Asylum.
Yeah.
pretty much.
So that's when we got our first nuclear bombs before they actually dropped them on Japan.
What was that project called? The-
Paperclip.
The Brooklyn one.
Manhattan?
Oh, the
The
Manhattan
Manhattan
Project.
Project.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn?
No.
I was like, Brooklyn?
So going back to your original,
So that's why that American investigator thought it was odd that this biochemist who if you look into his story as well.
So that's some trippy stuff, man. I don't know.
So these are all actually they're out in the public. These are public declassified documents that you can go research yourself. There's also you can find the videos that the U.S. Army also used. And this was a conspiracy back in its day. I mean, they didn't believe that. Like, why? How could this be used for warfare? And just what the victims experienced, like it just didn't make sense.
to drop a big bomb full of marijuana
Yeah, exactly.
and make everything a lot easier.
A lot mellow.
But yeah, so it's just things are suspicious. I mean, that biochemist was in France 10 days before the incident, and then the incident happens, and then we have the Korean War about to start. But Project Bluebird, which is a hallucinogen
Drug?
No, not drug. Research. They were researching the studies for the psychological warfare. Was studied was started months before the Korean War, and during the Korean War, that's when it was expressed that that the U.S. Soldiers were using chemical warfare against the Koreans. But this was said to be a lie in order for the U.S. to use it as an excuse to start these studies.
Yeah.
So what was the outcome of this? Who was the person doing this thing in France? Was it actually that biochemist?
It was that was inconclusive because he committed suicide, and there was really no paper trail besides him just being there.
That's why it's also kind of iffy that he committed suicide from.
Well, he
window.
was. They interviewed the family, and the wife was saying that he was depressed. He was showing signs of depression.
Or signs of being threatened that something's happening. We're getting caught.
No, it was more like a guilty. He felt
He
like
felt guilty?
He even expressed it that he did something that he shouldn't have. That's what he told his wife.
Well, a lot of people that invent certain things feel guilty afterwards. I mean, I'm pretty sure they say that Einstein said that's not what I did my inventions for. He never planned, all his research to be put into an atomic bomb.
No, it wasn't meant for the destruction of humanity. It was more of a scientific advancement.
Exactly, but he felt bad that that's what it was used for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure he knew, but since he agreed to help him out, and it was for him, it was probably mainly for science.
Yeah.
So after when they used it, yeah, I could see the regret on that.
That's the tough thing, real, right? Because a lot of the times, that's why scientists are constantly looking for donors, because if you have the U.S. military funding you, for the most part, you know that whatever you're making is going to be for something that they want to use it for. So you're
Of
like,
course.
okay. But I mean, if you're a real if you're a scientist that just wants to win at all costs or figure it out at all costs, well, then you're going to get taken advantage of very easily. I think they're just going to throw money at you, and you're going to be like, "Oh hell yeah, let me."
But yeah, because they're trying to learn new things that they can use.
Yeah, that's what makes a good scientist, right? Someone that's constantly curious about the world, and they want to learn more about the world. The problem is that what they figure out, what they learn, what they invent, oftentimes can be used for things that they don't even end up expecting, and they're like, crap.
Deadly.
Well, yeah, it's they invented it, but they don't own it.
Yeah.
Whoever is funding them pretty much gets all the rights, and then it's however they choose to use it. But yeah, I thought this one was pretty interesting. MK Ultra, Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird, they're all related to psychological warfare, and they're all public documents.
Are they all intertwined? Is it almost all of them are all the same?
It's just different aspects of it. I guess you could probably say MK Ultra. So MK Ultra is the sleeper soldier. So that's when they hear a certain code, a phrase, command. They get into their program, their soldier program. So that's when all memories before it's kind of put to the side, and it's like, all right, I have to go kill the president. I have to go kill something or whatever the program.
Is this U.S.?
This is as far as we know.
MK Ultra?
U.S. MK Ultra, yes. China, Russia, I mean, all other countries that have power, they have their own studies and tests.
I honestly, personally, don't believe that's possible.
Of what?
Brainwashing?
The MK Ultra stuff.
No, it's there. That was inconclusive. I mean,
I believe
there are videos out there of people that supposedly were MK Ultra soldiers.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of see them and they're just like blank. Like the one I think back to is it was one of those reporters. He was live on air. Like he just blanked and just stared at the camera.
Well, that was me when we did our first take on the last video.
But it doesn't mean it happened. But
I don't
it's
think
just,
It's like
you
all
might
the
not
people that-
believe it's possible, but have a belief that they did try.
yeah, that's the point that I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
get. I don't think the psychological warfare was effective to how they wanted. So they didn't get their truth serum. They got something sort of like it, like you were saying,
Yeah.
but not what they want, where they just confess everything to you. They tried the whole sleeper thing, but that's when all the brains were wiped out, or they just went crazy. Because they didn't know the effects that it was going to happen, so I'm pretty sure they gave them like crazy doses on certain individuals.
I can believe.
There's always going to be crazy studies out there. It doesn't mean that they're conclusive or that they work, but have an assurance that they're going to try it.
Yeah.
Reason why is because I think the way they think is if we're not doing it, someone else is. So we got to do it, and we got to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a good one because it was a conspiracy, but because of declassified. So this is something that's out in the public. You just have to go dig for it. I mean, you got to do some work, and I encourage everybody to just be skeptical and do their own research.
Yeah, but also be kind of realistic too. I think that's how I tend.
Well,
to
that's why you gotta research it.
But these are
well, because you can
declassified. Yeah, but
Yeah,
if these are declassified CIA information, I mean, how unskeptical do you need to be? It's
Well-
like someone goes to court, and hypothetically speaking, someone snitches on you, and it's public domain, and just because you don't believe it, but when they present you all the evidence and you get all the files from that particular case, you're like, oh, okay. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
when
but-
the military declassifies articles or the plane that they've been researching on Area 51, which doesn't exist, also got declassified, you know? So if you think something isn't real and then declassify it and they tell you, oh, you know what? It's been real all this whole time. Like Area 51. Area 51 doesn't exist. It's only an airport for Air Force, right?
Sure.
But then a couple years ago they said, okay, well, Area 51 does exist and it is a research center for aircrafts for the U.S. military. You know, I mean, we know. We're not stupid. You can't hide it from us.
Well, we knew it was something. We didn't know exactly what was going on.
Well, you
But-
still don't know what's going on, but it's declassified where
and
it
see,
exists.
And that's actually a perfect example of what I'm trying to get at is we get so much amount of information and people have a habit of drawing their own conclusions from that. So we don't know what's going on at Area 51, but since we don't know, it leads a lot of people to say, well, what we do know is that it's a classified area that they don't want us to know what's going on. They say it's about aircraft, but they're being really sketchy about it. Everybody knows what it is. So what do we think it is? Well, it has to be aliens because and then they relate it. So what I'm trying to say
they
is
speculate.
they speculate, but
you have to speculate. If nothing is out on the open, you have to speculate. What else do you have to do?
it's not that you have to speculate.
Well, the other
it's-
thing too is people automatically assume it's like aliens.
Yeah, and that's
But
what I'm
it's
saying.
Like you don't have conclusive data that
no,
shows
yeah,
you.
that's what I mean. But I mean,
what I'm trying to say is
with
people
no
need to
data,
No,
with no information, all you have is your mind and your imagination to go by.
Yeah, but even with the limited information, well, and then even then, I would just say, okay, well, then just be quiet. Why
Well,
try?
then you don't have an imagination.
Well,
But-
what I'm trying to say is that these things end up leading to giant conspiracy theories because then you have this like Area 51 is big is widely known as being the alien the alien conspiracy, right? Because Area 51 is where they house all the aliens and spacecraft and all that stuff, and this is based off of just conspiracy theory. There's no information suggesting that other than a lot of people say, well, we saw lights and we feel like Area 51 was the closest to it, but they didn't want to talk about it and this and this and it's like, okay, well, if you're gonna come up with stuff that's plausible or reasonable.
Yeah, but there's also a
and the
lot
same
of
thing,
things
like-
that you don't know about what happens.
True, but why
People disappearing.
True, and trust me, I mean, I think you could come to certain levels of
Anything that is conspiracy related.
And there's court,
Anything.
But what I'm,
there's people that have won cases against the CIA for MK Ultra that they paid them out for using them in their experiments.
no, I'm not saying that the experiments didn't happen. Okay, what I'm trying to get at is this. Okay, so draw reasonable conclusions with information we do know. Okay, is there anything that leads anybody?
Well, that's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but what I'm,
Reasonable conclusion. It's a base for the U.S. military.
yeah,
With its special research in flying objects and aircrafts.
okay,
So that's all I said.
and yeah, and that's what I'm saying. But okay, what I'm trying to say is people have a habit of taking that aircraft part and relating it to aliens and saying it's alien aircraft that they're examining,
researching with, yeah.
So
what I'm
not
trying to say is
not exactly. So what people say is that the U.S. military has alien aircrafts that they are doing research there. So essentially, what it is that you get it's called reverse engineering. So they have aircrafts from what is it, the Roswell
Roswell.
crash, so that they have those aircrafts in Area 51, and they're reverse engineering it, and they're applying what they find out into our new aircraft.
yeah, it's the Megatron hidden in the ice.
All we know,
Yeah.
all we know is they have scientists in there and they build airplanes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So I guess the only thing I'm trying to get at is if you guys are going to go research these things, if anybody's going to go out there and research these things, try to take what we do know and speculate within the realm of what we do know, and try not to wander out, because that's where you get all these giant conspiracies.
Wander off, but you want to stay in the possible scenarios. But
no, what I'm saying is that people have a tendency to wander off. What I'm trying to say is go with what you do know, and I don't just mean what we know about that particular situation, what we know about the broader topic. Okay, so like mind manipulation. The reason why I don't believe that MK Ultra soldiers actually exist is because when you pay attention to magicians or people that actually, I mean, there are people that legitimately know how to hypnotize people. And I have
that's also debatable too, because I don't believe in that.
I believe it's possible. I just because I
don't like when you go upstage and in Vegas and they said someone turned into a chicken. I don't believe that shit.
You have to allow yourself to be. Yeah. That's the only way. If you go up there saying, I'm not going to be hypnotized, you're not going to be. They even said it.
It kind of is like a weak mind, strong mind. What it is with
you don't think that when you go, they pick out people that are already paid off to come up stage?
I can see that.
I mean, anything could be conspiracy.
Yeah.
People, they say that big people that win in Vegas is just people to hype up to stay in the casinos. They pay a couple people to play slots, and you already assigned to your slots, and you've been playing in there.
Yeah.
And it's normally the corner peoples that are playing all day there, and they win.
Yeah, but here's what I mean by at least staying within reason. So I've seen examples where I feel like, okay, I believe these people are actually hypnotized. What I haven't seen ever is anybody being hypnotized longer than like a small period of time. And then even if you have people that write books about this stuff or actually research hypnotization, and people that actually are professional hypnotists and all that stuff, I've never gotten into anything where they say they've done anything that lasted longer than a day, or anything with some real significance to show me that's a. But I have seen examples, and I have read examples of short-term hypnotization where it's like little things, where it's like, I mean, you have examples of the chicken. Have you seen the one where they do it with the chicken? Mm. So they get the chicken, they put the chicken's beak in the ground, and then they slide their finger on the ground, and they make a mark from the chicken's beak. You can watch this on YouTube. They got like little clips of this. So the guy, he puts he holds the chicken head to the ground, he makes a line in the finger with his finger from the beak in the ground, and makes a line, and then he picks up his finger, and the chicken stays there. Literally, the chicken stays there. I mean, I mean, I don't know how to do it myself, and the video looks pretty convincing. I mean, I don't know if it's true.
Gotta calm down.
It just sits there and it stares at the line. It's just sitting there. As soon as he crosses that line, chicken starts freaking out, starts running around. I think the mind is capable of being manipulated. That's why that's why they put you can even find these on YouTube where they have
but just realize that it's also a failed attempt.
That's what I'm saying, but that's why I don't believe it, because I haven't been given any examples of anything that
but listen
what we're saying about MK Ultra was they've done the experiments to people, not that they've been successful in those experiments, or they've actually made sleeper soldiers, or
it was a failed attempt, so they tried.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I'm not.
But like so when you're talking about this subject, you're agreeing and contradicting yourself at the same time. The thing is, I'm not because we're telling you, you're saying it's not possible, but you could believe it.
No,
we're telling you, it wasn't possible to manipulate people.
No, and I'm saying,
which you understand.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not. I don't think it's possible to have those kind of soldiers that are sleeper soldiers.
That's exactly what we're saying. It's not possible.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying too.
All we're saying is that there was an attempt to make MK Ultra sleeper soldiers.
Yeah, and that's what I'm.
And it wasn't possible to get somebody to stay asleep, and your mind to be hidden.
Yeah.
Until you get triggered to do whatever you got to do.
So here's why you're thinking I'm contradicting. I'm agreeing with you in the sense that I believe that those tests actually happen. That's where I agree. Period. That's it. I don't agree with anything else. But you're not saying anything else. So I disagree with the people who actually believe that the MK stuff actually...
Nobody believes because it got declassified that it wasn't possible.
Well, I don't know. For a good while there, a lot of people were believing it.
You do believe it until it declassifies and they tell you nothing happened. That's what I'm trying to explain. The project happened, it got declassified, and it says it wasn't successful. It's like
they didn't admit to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Because if it was successful, I mean, now people are gonna know, hey, there's sleepers out there.
Yeah, I don't
think it's
so.
successful.
The government always covers their ass. That's why they have blackout on
and
some
see,
of the.
And that's what I'm getting at is that people go based off of stuff like that where the government hasn't said, so we don't really know. But I think if you go based off of the information that you have, I think you can rule out a lot of those things, which is what I was getting with the hypnotizing stuff. I do believe that there is some level of hypnotization that actually is possible. I don't think to that extent it's possible, which is what you're saying. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people do fall into the fact that they start believing in it because of conspiracy. And what I mean by that is they believe in it based on the information we don't have. So they start to believe in things because of information we don't have, as opposed to looking at the information we do have and drawing a reasonable conclusion from that. And that's the only thing I was getting at. I wasn't trying to say that you believe in any of that stuff. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, to the audience watching, when you look into this stuff, try to draw conclusions based off the information we do have, not necessarily on the information that we don't have. Because if you go based off of the information we don't have, you can come up with anything.
Flying unicorns that spit vomit.
Yeah,
rainbow vomit.
Yeah, that's why you can't take conspiracies serious. It's more of just like a little hobby, and you just draw your own conclusions.
Yeah,
because the government's not going to admit to anything. No one's going to admit to crimes that could get them in trouble.
Yeah, but I think you can reasonably conclude stuff. The reason why I even if, let's say, the MK Ultra stuff wasn't declassified. Let's just say it wasn't declassified. We didn't know the information we know about that stuff. But from what we know about hypnotization, and especially, coming to this time and age where if it was real, how much more advanced it would be. Well, you don't see anything like that. You don't see any research like that. I mean, it would be the most massive conspiracy if they were to silence anybody that got too far in hypnotization. I mean, that'd be really hard to do, I would think. So looking at it reasonably, even if the documents weren't declassified, I would still look at it like I don't think it's possible. We don't have anything nowhere near that, and that was years ago. I was like, how are you going to tell me that back then they were able to figure out a way to keep sleeper people, or what is it, sleeper cells, that were able to, with the word, snap out of a trance and then be a totally different person? I mean, you have nothing that suggests that's possible.
Yeah.
Nothing to suggest. So I just personally wouldn't believe it unless I saw something that was a little bit closer to that.
Yeah, I don't believe it either.
No. So yeah, that about concludes it for the Black Vault. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Let's sign out. This was
all right, guys. I hope you guys have a good one wherever you are, and we'll catch you next time.
Later, homies.
Stay frosty.
That one was like an hour.